Okay, so I want to talk about this post that I saw on Reddit today. And it's in the subreddit Poverty Finance, right? And it just made me think of the kind of like how in this world as it's constructed, no matter what, your life results are your fault, right? For good, for bad, for ugly, right? And and now with this story here, I'm pretty sure there's more to the story. This is from Reddit, right? And in stories like this, people tend to leave out particular details, or, you know, people, we have a natural tendency to try and make ourselves look like we're in the right, right? Or sometimes maybe it's just hard to see where our fault is in the situation. But it really does highlight something about this world and how it is. So I'm just going to read through the post real quick. It's in the subreddit Poverty Finance, like I said, and it's titled "Losing My Job Showed Me People's True Colors." After I lost my job, my family ordered an Uber and dropped me off at a shelter. That moment showed me what they really think of me, like a piece of garbage they can just dump. Since then, I've slowly lost friends too. When you lose your income, it's like people look at you differently. It's hard to explain, but you start seeing their true faces. The way they treat you changes. Some disappear, some act like you're a burden. It's extremely hard to grasp, and honestly, you don't believe people you trusted could treat you this way. What's strange is that sometimes strangers show more kindness than people who have known you your whole life. A kind word, a bit of advice, and or just someone saying hang in there can mean everything. I've removed my entire family from social media. I have still a few friends, but after everything that's happened, I find myself wondering, who are they really? If anyone's gone through this, I'd appreciate hearing your experience. Can you really? Right. So, like with a post like this, like I try to let it be known, or I kind of just started talking on this channel, but I'm gonna say consistently that I have more of a black pill view on the world, right? So I don't see the person who wrote this as some completely innocent person. Like even it comes off a bit complaining and whiny and a bit wimpish to me, if I'm being honest, right? But it does kind of highlight something that I want to speak about, which is how, like I said, no matter what, your life results are, it's put on you, right? Uh, the interesting thing is that in this world that we have, right, we have a system that's set up, and in regards to like how you have to make it in the world, and how you can basically how you can survive, right? Like the school system and the job system and all that, right? Now, from the time when we're young, it's not really made clear. I'm not sure about school nowadays, but I know when I was in school, like they tell you like college is important and stuff, but like that's really the gist of it. They don't really know what you should aim for, or what. So, and that whole thing is kind of part in why there's a lot of people who went to college and got useless degrees. But basically, what I'm getting at is the path forward to prosperity is not as clear as people would like to pretend it is, right? And I think you have a lot of people who are more so naturally made for the system who get through it, and and not to discredit people who like go through college and get degrees and stuff like that, right? But I think a hard thing for those people to accept is that they were more so made for it. That it was the system, not necessarily saying that the system was tailored to them, but in a certain sense, they were lucky enough that they were born to be somebody that can make it through the school system and all that easier, right? Because like me, for instance, I'm somebody that had a very terrible time paying attention in class, particularly with subjects like math. Like I was very good with English, social studies, creative writing, things in that realm, right? Art, like stuff like that, I would do good in. But mathematics was not my forte, right? And I remember being when I was a kid, the the way I was treated by particular teachers, right? A lot of my teachers, it was kind of like this anger, as if like I was just like trying to give them the finger in regards. Like there was not this. They never seemed to like be able to put together like, okay, it would be some of the very same teachers that thought I was remarkable at reading and all that, right? So, but maybe due to that, they misunderstood and thought that like I was just trying to like screw around when it came to math. But my brain just had a real hard time, like all the way up until like high school. And when I made an attempt at community college, I still had the same issue in regards to math, right? Now, I never got it diagnosed. It might be something like ADD or ADHD, one of those, right? But I definitely can say that, and this is the thing where it gets tough because it's my own experience, right? I have to deal with being me, right? Outsiders looking in, it just look like foolishness, right? And both my parents are from a third world country, so anybody with parents from a third world country, you can take a wild guess as to how they thought about it, right? So for the most part, when me and my brother did bad in school, we just got beatings for it, right? And there wasn't really a understanding. Nowadays, it's a little bit better, but I still think it's still not nowhere where it should be, right? In regards to the understanding that certain people's brains are just not made for the system. And the system, if we're really trying to create a fair world where everybody can head towards success, the system needs adjusting, right? But also on top of that, there's kind of like the challenge in that because in a certain sense, the whole point of school is for people to get ushered through college and get ushered into the job market and kind of help the economy by working through and working with or, in these big companies, right? Or, whether it's something like a lawyer, doctor, right? Whatever it may be, right? So that's kind of like where the challenge comes into play in regards to that because it's like, how do you make sure that everybody gets a fair chance and everybody can seek gainful employment, right? And the unfortunate fact is that the world is just not built for that, right? The world does not. It's about because basically, if you even look through all the different decades, I'd say, right? The I don't know this for certain, but it wouldn't shock me if I looked this up and found this to be true. But I'm pretty sure that all the top college degrees, like the college degrees that are the most sought after, that were like said to be like, oh, you need a degree in this is the degree you need, right? I guarantee you from, because I think it was maybe around like the 1970s when going to college started to become a much more major thing, right? But I guarantee you that each decade, the top degree to get is just strictly based off of the wants of the top companies, right? And that's understandable to a certain extent, but I think it's something that people blank out of their minds when we're considering life and how people's lives play out and why they're in the positions that they're in, right? Like, for instance, what comes to mind for me was like, me and my father were having a conversation about how, the school system, because both of my parents are from Jamaica, right? But he was basically explaining to me that, like, the elementary school that he went to, only a certain amount of kids were able to go on to like the middle school. That was like the best middle school to go to, and then from there, only a certain amount of kids were able to go to the high school. That was the best high school, right? And he was basically saying that, like, back in the day when he was younger, when he was a kid going to school and all that, everybody thought that everybody had a fair shot. He's basically saying that he didn't even realize until he got older and started to think about it. He started to notice that that wasn't really the case. That wasn't what was going on. It was really like kind of like a sorting system where they're just trying to find the best of the best, right? And it's a very interesting thing, the view that we take on as people in regards to life and the outcomes that people get. Because, people see a homeless man and they'll feel sorry for him, but somebody who's like, that's struggling because, they weren't naturally built for the system, they'll get look they'll get looked down upon and they'll be frowned upon as if they're just not trying or as if they just don't care, right? Things of that matter, right? So, but I also want to look at it was a response under the post, right? And there was a comment that somebody made where they said, yes, being poor is seen both as your fault, but also somehow as contagious. We live in such an insane timeline. Far too many want to believe everything is fine, and they're clutching their rose-colored glasses and telling themselves, it can't happen to me. OP, meaning original poster, did something to deserve it. I have to believe that, or I'll realize how fragile my existence is, and that's unbearable to me, right? And they also said people are selfish. It's time for you to start being a lot more selfish too. Ironically, you'll likely get the best help from other poor people, right? So, several things here. One, the idea of being poor is seen as your fault. I think I was already kind of like going into that, and it's really something that's it kind of links back to another thing that I mention a lot, and that's how the human condition is the root of a lot of the troubles and conflicts and anxieties of life, right? The fact that human beings, we need food, we need shelter, and we need transportation, right? Food is an obvious one because if you don't eat for long enough, you're going to die or you're going to be weak, right? Shelter, obvious too, but human beings, we have squishy, soft bodies. If we stay outside too long, we're subject to the elements and also maybe being attacked by animals or other people and stuff like that, right? Because you can't really be aware while you're sleeping and all that, right? And bugs and all that kind of stuff probably going in here, right? And then transportation, we need that because you can't get things done just walking around everywhere, right? Like Uber and Lyft and even before that, taxis were major for a reason, right? So, but basically, due to those aspects of life, that's kind of like it's kind of like an interesting thing that like the system is kind of set up around that, as every system is, right? But that's kind of something that's linked into the cause of people kind of behaving and acting in this fashion, right? Because everybody wants stuff, everybody needs things, right? Me, you, and you, whoever else may be listening, when we feel hungry, we feel our hunger ourselves, right? Even if we were eating together, we're still feeling our own hunger and filling our own bellies, right? So that's kind of what causes people to move in this opportunist mindset, right? Right? You could say what you want about people being messed up, but some of the most messed up people, they get a lot out of the world because they have a cutthroat vision. They have a cutthroat kind of point of view, point blank, period, right? Whereas far as you have certain people who kind of get too caught up in emotional things and they get too caught up in, kind of more feely, imaginative kind of thinking about the world being able to be at peace. But unfortunately, it's not that way, right? Even the safety that people get to enjoy here in America is thanks to a lot of blood that's been spilt over the whole course of history, right? The comfort that a lot of people have in their homes, right? A lot of us overlook the central air, like air conditioning, right? We overlook that, right? But there's somebody, when ACs break down, or before you even have it, somebody has to install the AC, right? Somebody needs to come and fix the AC. That is very rough work to do. It's very tough work, right? But, I kind of was just thinking about all this from this standpoint. And, but let me continue on into the post, right? Where they say, or at least into this response, right? Where they're basically saying far too many want to believe everything is fine, right? And let me just jump down to the part where they're saying, where they're quoting the idea that, that more selfish minded people who can work and make it in the system, how they kind of think that people who don't make it are just either lazy or they did something to deserve their position and all that, or their lot in life, maybe put it that way, right? And this is something that's kind of like everybody has a hard time looking at people who they disagree with or that they have some kind of issue with without the understanding that they could have been them, right? And also, it's like there's a lot of people who, particularly people say who make it through the school system and all that, it's hard for them to fathom that they just happen to be, in a certain sense, lucky, right? So, a main thing that I think I'm trying to get across here is that, people don't really care to understand. People want what they want. Everyone around you wants what they want. That's why you commonly see something that I heard referred to as the Mike Jones effect. Anybody who's familiar with the song from the rapper Mike Jones, where he says, "Back then they didn't want me, now I'm hot, they all on me," right? And in the music video, Mike Jones, he's displaying this dichotomy of how before his rap career took off, how he was being treated, particularly by women, and how after he blew up, now these same people want to be around him. The woman want to come ride in his car who was dissing him before, right? And there's a lot of rappers who spoke about it. Like Tupac spoke about how, there was a club he used to go to before he became a popular rapper, and how after he became popular, some of the same women who were dissing Tupac, some of the same women who act like they couldn't see him, he was too short, he wasn't, all of a sudden, he's handsome, he's cute, he's amazing, right? That is the human creature. That is the majority of people, because people want to survive, right? And even beyond survival, there's other things like that people want. People want to be seen as good, or people want to be seen as as prosperous, right? People want to be seen as wealthy or important, right? People want to be the envied. They don't want to envy, right? So that's something that's kind of behind that. Like, I remember the rapper XXX Tentacion, how he was talking about how before he blew up as a rapper, there's an aunt of his, I think it would be his mother's sister, who basically, before he was popular, she didn't allow his like younger cousin to come around him since he was going to jail and stuff. She was saying he's a bad person, terrible. And according to him, from the time once he started getting popular and he is being seen all over the internet, and once he started making money, all of a sudden this aunt of his turned a whole nother leaf and wanted to be friendly and all that. And it very much upset him. Like he said, he told his mother straight up, you know, uh, I'm gonna paraphrase how he said it, but he was basically saying, like, I don't mess with her, right? I don't want her coming over at all. He basically declared his little cousin can come over, but his aunt, he don't want to see her at all, right? And it's understandable, because one has to wonder, what kind of person are you, right? What kind of person are you that when I'm going through difficulty, when I'm seemingly, I can understand I'm in jail and all that kind of stuff, but the way how, if you declare me such a terrible, such a bad person, why is it all of a sudden now money and fame makes me better, right? And these are things to think on, right? And I I think with I said it before, but a more black pill perspective, like a point blank period perspective when it comes to the world, right? And so I don't see things through the lens of we should be blindly what they call forgiven, because there's the common form of Christian forgiven is like, if somebody stabs you in the chest, you're supposed to be friends with them, right? But if you actually read the Bible, that's not the forgiveness that Jesus was talking about. The forgiveness that Jesus was talking about was in that situation, you don't try to take vengeance, right? You don't try to take vengeance, and you let it go, and you just avoid that person, right? So that you're not dragging yourself down with the energy of wanting to get vengeance and wanting to take care of this person yourself. That's what forgiveness is supposed to be. But Christians put the ethos like, no, you have to talk to him and try to talk the evil out of him and all that kind of stuff. I don't think you should do that at all, right? I don't think you should do that at all. There's too many people in the world. There's billions of people in the world. There's no time for that nonsense, right? I fully agree with anybody who is seen a certain way by somebody, and all of a sudden that person changes when they see you in a prosperous position, in a better position, in a better slot, and all of a sudden they want to latch on to you, right? Because as this person said in this post, the same way how being poor is seen as contagious, people also see being rich as contagious, right? That's one of the 48 laws of power. Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky, right? So, and I think a lot of people need to start waking up, even though I don't think it's never going to happen, because most people just aren't made for it, right? But people, at least, who are of more of a, I guess you could say, I'm trying to, yeah, my recorder kind of cut, but I was meaning to say that if you're of a more brighter mind and, not I guess I could say a simpleton, you have to understand the true nature of people and how they are and how they work, right? You'll save yourself a lot of heartache. You'll save yourself a lot of pain, right? Because the amount of time that people spend throwing themselves in the dumps, like the original poster of this of this Reddit post seems to be the kind of person. Like I said, I kind of see how it's written as like, kind of wimpish. I won't lie, but I can understand the sentiment. I can understand why somebody would feel that way. But the amount of time that you spend racking your mind about that is time you could spend developing something better for yourself. It's time that you could spend developing skills or becoming better, right? Because the point blank period truth about the system is that it doesn't care about your feelings, right? No matter how much stuff you see, particularly say from like liberal politics and politicians, like they care about people and they care about this, they do not. Those whether it's Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, right? And I'm not even I'm just saying from the perspective of like liberal politics, because that tends to be more on the side of trying to tell all different groups of people and marginalized people that they care about them. They don't care about you. They want your votes. It's that they can get your money. That's all it is. Point blank period. They don't care, right? But particularly the higher up you go, I'm not saying none of them don't care at all, right? But the amount of care that they have is probably maybe somewhere between like 5 to 25%, right? Most of it is about just wanting your vote and wanting your support, right? Because that's a whole nother thing I can go into for a long time. But basically, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of pretending when it comes to emotions and feels, right? And things like this, topics like this, and things that I mentioned, like the Mike Jones effect and the stories and explanations of Tupac and XXX Tentacion, right? Things like that, it kind of actually shows you the real and true nature of people, right? That's why I like to say that the bad times are a good thing, because when you're going through bad times, when you're going through times where, for the most part, people can't get nothing out of you that's special or extra, right? It tells and shows you a lot about the people around you. But even more, it should tell and show you about yourself.